My name is Melanie Rhodes. I'm 34 years old and live in the suburbs of Sacramento, California. 2 years ago, I bought my first home, a small red brick house with 2 bedrooms, a sunlit backyard, and a wooden front porch just big enough for a cafe table and a few pots of lavender. It wasn't just property. To me, it was living proof of a decade of hard work, late nights, and pushing through every doubtful look, especially from my own parents. I grew up in a traditional middle-class household. My father, Dennis, is a veteran who now works as a heavy-duty mechanic. My mother, Karen, used to be an office assistant, but quit when I entered high school, proudly declaring she was now managing the children and the family's finances. They had rigid principles about how children must repay and never forget where they came from. But to me, what they called tradition often felt like control wrapped in moral obligation. After high school, I wasn't allowed to choose an out-of-state college. They claimed sending me away was a waste of taxpayer money. Still, I secretly applied and won a full scholarship to a university in Phoenix, Arizona. When I told them I was leaving, my father threw the award letter onto the kitchen table and said, his voice dripping with contempt, "If you want to fly high, pay your own way. Don't come crawling back." I nodded, and from that day on, I never asked them for anything again. After graduation with a degree in financial management, I started at the bottom of a small consulting firm. I worked weekend shifts, picked up extra hours during holidays, and never turned down a client. After 7 years, I got hired by Pacific Equity Group, and 3 years later, I became a branch director. I'm not trying to brag, but I climbed every step myself. Every dollar I earned came from real sweat. Last year, I finally had enough saved for a down payment on my first home. It wasn't a mansion, it wasn't worth millions, but it was mine. When I invited my parents to see it for the first time, I prepared everything meticulously. I thought, maybe this time they'd be proud. They walked in, looked around, then sat on the couch like they were appraising it for resale, not visiting their daughter. My mother glanced at the ceiling and said, "The ceiling's a bit low. Old houses like this tend to leak. Did you check the plumbing?" My father walked through the house, stopping in the kitchen corner. "For the salary you say you're making, I guess this house is acceptable. At least it's an investment for the family's future." I froze. Family? This was my asset. Not a single cent came from them. No loans, no co-signing, no help. Just criticism. I calmly replied, "This is my house. I did it all on my own." My father smirked. "On your own? Don't forget who raised you. Without the family foundation, where do you think you'd be?" I didn't respond. I knew that in their eyes, everything I achieved was the result of what they called their investment. They didn't see the nights I ate instant noodles because I couldn't afford fresh groceries. They didn't see me washing cars on weekends during college or selling my old laptop to pay tuition while waiting for a paycheck. They only see me now, a woman with stable income, a home, and a career to be proud of, and they think it's thanks to their sacrifice. Every time I mention independence, my mother frowns like I just cursed. Once, when I said I was planning to reinvest in real estate, she said coldly, "Don't think just because you make money, you can do whatever you want. Homes, assets, eventually they should serve the family. Don't forget you're a daughter." I smiled, but it wasn't from joy. It was the kind of smile you wear when you're used to being dismissed. One that hides the sting of being seen not as a person, but as a debt that never finishes being repaid. I started noticing my parents visiting my house more frequently after that day. At first, it was over trivial things. Mom said their basement smelled musty, so she asked to store a few boxes of family documents and keepsakes in my garage. A week later, Dad brought over an old wooden cabinet claiming it was from Grandpa and couldn't survive the damp air at their place. Then came an antique dining table, some embroidered paintings, even a stack of suitcases I was sure no one had used since 2005. At first, I didn't object, thinking they just needed temporary space. But then things got weird. One day I came home from work and found Mom already inside, wiping down my bookshelf like it was hers. When I asked how she got in, she held up the spare keys, I had once given her for emergencies and casually said, "This is still family property, sweetie. Did you forget?" I didn't react right away. Maybe I was too stunned, or maybe I just didn't want a scene in the living room I had just cleaned the morning before. But that night I changed all the locks. The following week, my dad called saying he wanted to check the electrical system in my house. I told him everything was fine and had been inspected routinely. But he showed up anyway, brought a voltmeter, and spent nearly an hour examining the circuit breakers like he owned the place. While I was working my office, I heard him call out to Mom, "Karen, this panel's gonna need a replacement soon. Call Connor to take a look." Connor, my younger brother, 28, an HVAC tech, was still living in the upstairs bedroom at my parents' house. He had never once paid rent and treated everything as a given right. A few days later, Connor showed up. No notice. He brought a tool bag and walked into my home like he was about to remodel his own place. I stepped out of my online meeting, trying to stay calm. "Who invited you here?" He smirked. "Mom said this place needed urgent repairs. You two got any plans for the living room? If we knock out the wall, it'll open right up. Might even fit a bar in here." I stood frozen. This wasn't interference anymore. This was calculated encroachment. The assertive words, the overreaching actions, everything was pushing me out of my own home. That evening, I called my mother directly. "Did you tell Connor anything about fixing up my house?" "I just said he could take a look, just in case you wanted to expand someday. A house this big, such a waste to live alone in it." I frowned. "Mom, this house is mine. I don't need anyone drawing up renovation plans for me." She was silent for a moment, then responded in that soft, patronizing tone, "Do you know why you could afford a house? It's because of family foundations, upbringing, sacrifices. I don't want to say it, but Connor needs a stable place too. This house is big. You live alone. What's wrong with sharing?" I set the phone down like it had exploded in my hand. After that, the questions started coming fast. Which bank holds your mortgage? Is it a fixed or variable rate? Does your lender offer refinancing? Where do you keep the deed? Wrapped in feigned concern, but I could hear the steel edge in my dad's voice. One day, while working, I got a text from Connor. "If you need a property maintenance manager, let me know. I'm available." I didn't respond. The more time passed, the more I felt trapped in what used to be my proudest achievement. I locked my file drawers, reset all my online banking security, and moved the house deed to a secure vault at a local bank. I hid a backup copy in a private safe with a code I had never used anywhere else. The final straw came one night when I returned home late and found a large cardboard box at my door, no label, no name. Inside were old family photo frames, some childhood albums, and a handwritten note from my mom. "Peas belong where we all call home, the house that should belong to the whole family." I stood there, staring at photos of myself, a child who once believed that family bonds were unbreakable. I thought I'd been cautious enough, but it turned out this was only the beginning. I hosted a dinner to celebrate my promotion on a Saturday evening in early April, just as spring sunlight began to stretch across the neighborhood. I wanted that moment to be a bridge, to remind my parents and younger brother that even though I'd carved my own path, I still considered them family. I made Dad's favorite grilled beef, tossed a salad with Mom's usual olive oil dressing, and baked a lemon pie from scratch, the kind Connor once devoured half of in one afternoon back in high school. I laid out a new tablecloth, brought out the porcelain dishes I'd kept tucked away, and poured Napa Valley red wine I'd bought on a business trip to San Jose. At 6 p.m., the doorbell rang. I opened the door with a smile, but froze slightly when I saw Connor behind my parents. No heads up, no message. Just a casual remark from my mom as she stepped inside. "Your brother was free, so I told him to come along." I nodded, pulled up another chair, and told myself not to ruin the night. During dinner, things stayed civil at first. My mom complimented the new curtains, though her "how much did these cost?" made me pause mid-bite. My dad ate in silence, occasionally glancing around the house like he was taking inventory. Connor stayed glued to his phone, smirking now and then like he was reading something hilarious. I waited until we'd finished eating. Then I brought out the lemon pie and refilled the wine before saying, I have some good news to share. This week I was officially promoted to regional finance director. There's a raise, and I'll be leading my own team. I smiled gently, trying to stay humble, but still hoping for a flicker of pride in their eyes. Silence. Then my mother spoke, her voice paper thin. So that means you'll be even busier? Aren't you worried about keeping up with the house? My dad set down his wine glass, eyes suddenly cold. Melanie, your mother and I have talked this through. This needs to be said while we're all here. A chill ran down my spine. Say what? He sat up straight, staring directly at me. This house should be a shared family asset. It's not reasonable for you to live alone in a place like this. Connor needs his own space to grow his career, and your mother's getting older. It's no longer convenient for her to deal with the stairs at our place. I sat frozen. What are you talking about? My mother chimed in, her voice trembling, not with emotion, but like she was holding back bitterness. Since you were little, have you ever had anything that wasn't thanks to this family? Your education, your upbringing, your foundation. Now that you've succeeded, it's time to give back. I swallowed the shock and said each word clearly. This is my house. I paid the down payment. My name is on the deed. I make the mortgage payments every month. No one helped me financially or otherwise. Connor scoffed, arms crossed. If no one had taken care of you growing up, you wouldn't even be here. Don't forget your roots, Melanie. Anyone listening would think you made it all on your own. My father leaned forward, voice steely. We've already made the decision. The family will be moving in within the next 2 weeks. Whether you stay or not, that's your choice. But this house will belong to the family. Your mother and I have sacrificed our whole lives. It's time we reap what we've sown. I stood up, voice rough. No, this is my home. No one has the right to take that from me. My mother squinted at me. If you have any conscience left, you won't say no. But if you're choosing to separate yourself from the family, so be it. My dad extended his hand. Give me the keys. I'll hold on to them tonight. I went still. My entire body froze, not from fear, but from disbelief. I looked at each person in that room, the people I called family, but none of them looked back at me like I belonged. They looked at me like a target. I placed the keys on the table without a word, then walked to the door, leaving behind an untouched lemon pie and a dry, bitter silence in the house they had just declared family property. I woke up the next morning on the sofa at my best friend Rachel's apartment. I hadn't gotten much sleep. My parents' words kept echoing like knives stabbing my chest. Hand over the keys. This house belongs to the family. I had handed them over, almost like a reflex. Not out of fear, but because I didn't want to become the one screaming in the kitchen, where I once dreamed of peaceful mornings with coffee and sunlight filtering through the blinds. Rachel had left a note before going to work. Call a lawyer. This isn't a joke. I glanced at my phone screen. 42 unread messages from the extended family group chat, mostly from my Aunt Sylvia, who had always believed a woman shouldn't live alone in a big house. I hadn't opened a single one when the phone rang. An unknown number. I picked up. Hello, this is Thomas Levine from Fairpoint Mortgage. I need to verify some recent changes made to the loan account for Miss Melanie Rhodes. I sat upright, a chill creeping down my spine. What changes? Around 4 p.m. yesterday, someone called to update the primary contact address, submitted a new email and phone number, and also requested to add 2 co-borrowers, one Dennis Rhodes, the other Karen Rhodes. I gripped the phone tighter. Did they say how they're related to me? They stated they're your parents. They provided your full social security number, date of birth, loan ID, even your personal security question. The file nearly went through if the system hadn't flagged it as suspicious. I closed my eyes. 4 p.m. yesterday was exactly when I was in the kitchen, listening to them declare, this house belongs to the family. They have no right to change anything. I am the sole owner, no co-borrowers, and no one is authorized to access my records. Understood. Because the information was so complete, we're required to verify directly. Would you like us to temporarily lock the account? Yes. Lock everything. Enable two-factor authentication and flag for fraud if anyone else contacts you again. I hung up, my heart pounding. They didn't just want the house. They wanted to make it official, turn me into a stranger on my own financial documents. I drove straight to the bank, requested the full access log, and printed copies of all activity related to the attempted transaction. The staff confirmed the call came from a landline registered under my father's name. I backed up every file onto a USB, then called a real estate attorney named Lindsay Travis, someone Rachel had mentioned before. Thankfully, she agreed to meet that same afternoon. In Lindsay's neat, sunlit office, I laid everything out, from being pressured to hand over the keys to the bank call. She listened intently, taking notes, her expression only changing when I described how my parents used my social security number. Melanie, this is serious identity fraud. They're trying to seize property through impersonation. You have evidence, and we have strong legal grounds, but you need to act immediately. Can you help me? I'll send a cease and desist notice to them today, and we'll begin the process for a temporary restraining order. You should also contact the police, especially if they still have the keys. I nodded. A part of me still didn't want to believe this was real. But every detail, the bank call, my father's ice-cold stare, my mother's sweet but venomous tone, Connor's smug indifference, proved one thing. This wasn't just betrayal. They were stripping me of the life I built with my own two hands. As I stepped out of the law office, the afternoon sun still lingered on the sidewalk, but for me, a different kind of darkness had already begun to descend. I returned to the house on Monday morning, accompanied by a local police officer named Officer Blake. The day before, my attorney, Lindsay Travis, advised me to bring a legal witness if I went back, especially since my parents still had keys. I had filed a police report for unlawful entry and requested a temporary property hold until the dispute was resolved. The patrol car pulled up right by the curb in front of my house, where I used to plant lavender along the walkway. But those purple flowers were gone now. In their place were bags of lime, cement, and a large wooden crate full of construction tools. My heart raced as I spotted my father's gray, beat-up Ford truck parked in the driveway. Right next to Connor's pickup. I turned to Officer Blake. They're not supposed to be here. I never gave consent. He nodded firmly. I'll speak to them. Stay in the car until I check things out. I watched him step onto the porch and knock 3 times. No answer. Then the door swung open and it was my father, Dennis Rhodes, standing there in dusty jeans, rolled up sleeves, and holding a hammer. He didn't look surprised. It was like he'd been expecting someone. But not me. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I saw Officer Blake flash his badge and start taking notes. Then he motioned for me to step out of the car. As Melanie, they're inside the house and claiming this is family property. Clutching the strap of my handbag, I walked through the doorway I had opened thousands of times before. Everything inside looked gutted. My brown leather sofa had been shoved against the opposite wall. The white shag rug I had placed in the center of the room was gone. Paint stains were splattered across the floor. The smell of fresh lumber, paint, and sweat hit me in the face. Connor stepped out from the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, holding a measuring tape, a pencil in his mouth like he was on a job site. He smiled at me as if nothing was wrong. Hey, you're back? I was thinking of knocking down that divider wall. Mom prefers open kitchens. I stood frozen. What did you just say? I'm remodeling the place. The old kitchen tiles were outdated. I found a great supplier. Smoke gray, looks real upscale. My dad walked over, clapped Connor on the shoulder, then turned to me wearing the look of someone making a family announcement. Melanie, this isn't just your decision anymore. This house belongs to the family. Your mother wants the living room turned into an ancestral shrine. Connor will take the upstairs. Your mother and I are moving in next week. I turned to Officer Blake. You see this? They're changing the structure, moving personal belongings, acting like they own the place. But I'm the only name on the deed. Officer Blake took notes seriously. I'll file a report for unauthorized entry and use of property. Do you want them removed today? I nodded. Yes, I want them out immediately. They have no right to be here. My mother came down the stairs, holding an old photo frame of my grandparents. She didn't look at me, just said casually, "You're still so stubborn. Family is meant to share, not treat each other like enemies." I replied coldly, "No family breaks into someone's house, moves their things, and declares it all theirs like it's normal." Connor tossed the tape measure onto the table. "Fine, you want to blow this up? Call your lawyer, call the cops. But you're going to look bad in front of the whole family. Just wait and see." I didn't answer. Instead, I pulled out my phone, opened the camera, and started recording every corner. Every paint smear, every missing photo frame, every unauthorized renovation. This would be evidence. I sat in attorney Lindsay Travis's office on Wednesday morning, 2 days after discovering, with the police, that my parents and younger brother had boldly renovated my home as if they owned it. The sun was out, but all I felt was a burning sting on my skin, like standing inside the furnace they built from greed and deceit. Lindsay wore a white blouse, hair pulled back, face calm, but her eyes were sharp as scalpels. "Melanie, I'll file for a temporary restraining order within 24 hours. Based on what you've provided, videos, the police statement, and the mortgage documents, the court has grounds for emergency action. But before submitting, I want to review their financial background and legal history." I nodded, gripping my cold paper coffee cup. "I suspect they're hiding debt, but I never thought to check." "Then let me handle that. With your consent, I'll have my legal team pull credit reports, registered assets, and any public filings related to Mr. Dennis and Mrs. Karen Rhodes." Lindsay stepped out for about 10 minutes. When she returned, she carried a thick, neatly clipped file and placed it in front of me without a word. I could read the disgust in her eyes, not directed at me, but at the names on the report. "Our investigation shows your parents are in serious financial trouble," Lindsay began. "They owe over $85,000 across 3 credit cards and had accounts temporarily frozen for non-payment 2 years in a row." I held my breath. "Last year, they refinanced their current home and took out an additional $60,000 for emergency repairs, but records show the funds were drained within 3 months, with no evidence of renovations or home improvements." She flipped to the next page. "More importantly, this isn't their first time engaging in shady financial behavior." Lindsay slid me a copy of a complaint filed in Placer County back in 2016. The filer, Barbara Jennings, my mother's sister. Ms. Barbara accused your parents of attempting to take control of her retirement savings account by forging her signature during a meeting with a financial advisor. The case was withdrawn before going to court due to an internal settlement, but the document is still in the public record. I didn't remember the details. Just that after that year, my mother always referred to Aunt Barbara as a traitor and forbade me from speaking to her. I felt like someone had just pushed me off the 20th floor. "Do you want to contact your aunt?" Lindsay asked. I nodded. "If anyone understands what I'm going through, it's her." That same afternoon, I called Aunt Barbara. She answered after 2 rings, her voice still warm and steady, just like when she used to take me to Disney movies as a kid. "Oh my God, how are you? Your mom said you ran off with bad influences," she said bitterly. "No, they kicked me out and nearly stole my house." I gave her the short version. Enough to make the situation clear. She paused for a moment, then sighed. "They haven't changed. Back then, I nearly lost every cent of my retirement. I only made it because I caught on early and got lucky." "Why did you withdraw the case?" "Because of your grandfather," he begged me. Said, "Let them make it right. Let's keep the peace." But they never made it right. They just kept going quietly like nothing ever happened. And now, it's your turn. I closed my eyes. All the puzzle pieces snapped into place. My father's icy stare, my mother's shared family speech, Connor's shameless grin. This wasn't impulse. It was calculated, and I was just the next target. I opened my eyes, locking gaze with Lindsay, who waited for my response. "Do whatever it takes to protect my property, and if it comes to court, I'm ready. Family is not a license to legalize greed. Lindsay nodded. You just said what many never dare to, and today we'll put that into a lawsuit. I had just finished my Monday morning financial review meeting when I saw my phone vibrating nonstop on the desk. 6 missed calls from Aunt Sylvia, 5 messages from Ellie, my longtime coworker, and an email from HR titled Request for Clarification, Personal Conduct Allegation. I opened the first message from Aunt Sylvia. Melanie, did you really kick your parents out of the house? They're devastated. I can't believe this. My hands turned cold as I scrolled down to a screenshot of a Facebook post from my mother. Karen Rhodes. An old college photo of me, followed by a long, emotional caption. When your daughter becomes successful and forgets who raised her. We gave everything for her, only to be thrown out, just for checking in on the house we helped build. Praying for all parents who still believe in family. The post had over 130 shares. Among them were countless comments from people I hadn't spoken to since high school, my mother's old acquaintances, and distant relatives I barely knew. A daughter like this will die alone one day. No manners, too much education turned her ungrateful. Or Mr. and Mrs. Rhodes raising a snake in their own home. I didn't cry, I just sat frozen, like stone, until a soft knock on the door snapped me out of it. It was Ellie. Melanie, are you okay? What's going on? I tried to keep my voice steady. I just found out too. My family has officially made me the villain of the nation. Ellie looked at me for a moment, then handed me her phone. On the screen was an anonymous email sent to upper management in our finance division. To whom it may concern, I am a family member of Melanie Rhodes. She has been displaying signs of mental instability, dangerous behavior, and has a documented history of severe disputes with her parents over property. I am concerned her position may pose a risk to your clients. Attached was a photo from the dinner night when I was asked to hand over my house keys. Someone had secretly recorded it. The image showed me standing, visibly angry, pointing at my father. There was no audio, but the expression alone was enough to make anyone think I'd lost control. I clenched my teeth, forcing down the lump in my throat. I don't believe a word of that, Ellie said. But someone is targeting you. You need to speak to internal legal immediately. I nodded. Less than an hour later, I was called in to meet with our HR director, Mrs. Margaret Hall, who had always been supportive since my days as an assistant analyst. She began the conversation in a calm but clear tone. Melanie, I need to ask directly. Are the allegations about inappropriate conduct in your family true? I looked her straight in the eye. No, absolutely not. I am the victim of a smear campaign orchestrated by my own parents and younger brother who attempted to steal my house and when that failed turned to destroying my reputation. I briefly explained the situation, the restraining order my attorney had filed, and the discovery of their past financial misconduct. Mrs. Hall stayed silent for a moment, then exhaled deeply. I believe you, but you need to take legal action fast. What they're doing could cause real damage if not stopped soon. I left her office with a strange mix of panic, rage, and above all, numbness. Not because of the lies they broadcasted, but because I had once believed my family would protect me when I was hurt. Instead, they were the ones who pushed me off the edge, and then raised a flag declaring me the traitor. In that moment, I knew they didn't just want my house. They wanted to destroy me, piece by piece. The Sacramento County Court read the verdict on a June morning, and the courtroom was so quiet I could hear Attorney Lindsay's pen strike the paper. Based on the evidence presented, including surveillance footage, recorded calls, bank reports, witness testimony, and legal documents, the court issues a permanent restraining order against Mr. Dennis Rhodes, Mrs. Karen Rhodes, and Mr. Connor Rhodes. The judge paused for a second before concluding. Furthermore, the court recognizes the entire property at 1824 Willow Creek Drive as the personal, lawful, and undisputed property of Ms. Melanie Rhodes. I didn't cry, not because I wasn't moved, but because I had run out of tears long ago. I simply closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and squeezed Lindsay's hand under the table. My father, who sat arms crossed through the whole trial, maintained his icy expression. My mother kept her head low, but I knew it wasn't out of remorse, only shame and defeat. Connor, my younger brother, who once declared he would manage my assets for the good of the family, stormed out midway, ignoring the officer's warnings. I walked out of court feeling like I had just broken chains. No more domineering voice of my father echoing in my head with every decision. No more anonymous threats. No more fake Facebook posts with hundreds of slanderous shares. It was all over, at least on paper. Over the next 3 months, I focused on remodeling the house, not to cover up their traces, but to completely rewrite the space. I hired a design team to tear out the old kitchen cabinets where my mother once arranged flowers like she owned the place. The wood floors were replaced. I even had the wall between the living room and kitchen knocked down, an idea Connor once suggested, with a tone of entitlement, now made real. On my terms. I ordered a new sofa set from a boutique in Portland, olive green, simple, solid. On the walls, 2 abstract paintings. No more family photos, no more curated memories. I didn't deny the past, but I wouldn't let it define me. The backyard, where my father once insisted on building a gazebo for family gatherings, was stripped of its concrete base and turned into a herb and vegetable garden. I installed drip irrigation myself, planted cherry tomatoes, mint, rosemary, and sage. Every morning, I brewed coffee and stepped onto the back porch, listening to the soft drip of water, smelling the moist earth under the early sun. For the first time in years, I didn't feel a weight on my chest when I woke up. Emotionally, I kept seeing my therapist, Anne. Once a week, in a recent session, she asked, "If your parents texted asking to see you again, how would you respond?" I didn't need to think. I wouldn't respond. I have nothing left to say to them. I don't hate them, but I don't forgive them. Not because I lack compassion, but because they've never once apologized. They only sought to reclaim what they believed they were owed. I cut all contact, changed my phone number, blocked their emails, deleted my social media. I don't need to keep tabs on them. I need peace. And I have it by choosing not to look back. I'm no longer Melanie Rhodes, the dutiful daughter trying to prove her worth. I'm Melanie, a 34-year-old woman with a home built by her own hands, a stable career, and a life no one gets to intrude on anymore. I protected the most valuable thing I have, my right to own my life. And to me, that is the brightest victory. Melanie's story is proof that sometimes the greatest threat to the peace we work so hard to build comes from within our own family. In reality, setting boundaries, even with relatives, is not betrayal, but an act of protecting one's worth and dignity. No one has the right to claim the fruits of your labor just because they carry the title of parent or relative. When you stand up for yourself, you're not just preserving your property, you're preserving your right to shape your own life. What do you think about Melanie's journey and her firm choice to cut ties? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more honest, real-life stories about family, boundaries, and self-respect.